Manuel HASSASSIAN, thank you very much for being with WPC TV. You are the representative in London of the diplomatic mission of Palestine. Now, Palestine is always a perpetual problem for the United States, perhaps for the world in general, the Arab-Israeli dispute. John Kerry is now devoting a lot of energy to resolving this issue. Are you an optimist, or do you think that a resolution is still a very long way off?
First of all, let me say that I agree with you. The crux of the problem in the Middle East is the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. Without solving that conflict, there will never be stability and security in the Middle East. What we're witnessing today in the Middle East is an upsurge of Arab awakening. It's like a tide that will subside in the final analysis. But it is not the main source of instability and insecurity. I think Israel has to understand, without resolving the Palestinian issue, by having our independent Palestinian state on the 4th of June 1967 border, Israel will continue to be a pariah state. And that's why I think the latest rounds of talks, sponsored by the United States, spearheaded by John Kerry and Martin Indyk, I think, the intentions are well. And John Kerry is putting and devoting a lot of his personal time. He wants to ice break this conflict because he believes that any break in this conflict, in any resolution to this conflict, in the final analysis, will create stability and will secure U.S. geostrategic and national interests in the Middle East. That's for sure. But for the short run, I'm very pessimistic because I don't see anything moving after 20 rounds of talks. Settlements are still being built. The Israelis are putting new conditions on the negotiations. They're just focusing on the question of security and borders. Nothing is being discussed on settlements, Jerusalem, water, and what have you. And in the final analysis, when they talk about security for the Jordan Valley, how can we talk about a two-state solution when the Palestinian territories are geographically non-contiguous? And Israel, with its systematic policy of building settlements and expanding settlements, are really aborting the entire idea of a two-state solution.
I seem to remember someone saying once that American foreign policy can only concentrate on one thing at a time. And you have the Syrian conflict, you have the question of Iranian nuclear program. Does the Arab-Israeli issue, despite the efforts of John Kerry, in a sense get put on the back burner? Something which is not going to explode, something in which Bibi Netanyahu seems to be not exactly energetic. Do you worry that things will simply be left in cold storage?
I think what you say is absolutely true. It's on the back burner for the simple fact that John Kerry personally asked President Mahmoud Abbas that we should give it a shot in the coming 9 months. In other words, he wanted to buy time. And buying time is to secure at least, the Palestinian-Israeli conflict through what we call techniques of crisis management and not conflict resolution. And within the 9 months, he believes, and the American administration believes, that things might unfold very quickly on the Syrian issue and on the Egyptian issue. So actually what the Americans wanted from Mahmoud Abbas, our president, is a moratorium in order to try more or less to see how things are going to develop on the other fronts, which are considered to be of really basic concern today in the Americans as an immediate concern. Now the nuclear file, the Syrian situation, Hezbollah, they are all intricately intertwined together. So you're talking about, one complete block in the Middle East that has been the source of hypertension. And that's why the Americans are focusing on those issues by not being proactive the way they should in the process, but by being bystanding away and looking how things are developing with the emphasis that the Europeans might bear the brunt,
But the constant criticism of the Palestinians is that you say that the Palestinian territories are not contiguous, but also you could say politically they're not exactly contiguous. You have Hamas in Gaza, and you have essentially Fatah
Yes.
and allies
I
in
totally agree with you, but we have to bear in mind that the PLO has always been the chief interlocutor with Israel when it came to negotiations. Hamas was never part and parcel of it. Hamas, as a matter of fact, came into existence in 1988, and Hamas is only a faction. Now, if you ask me, the recognition of the state of Israel came from the PLO. It did not come from Fatah per se,
Yes.
neither from Hamas. So let's not try to put Hamas as an impediment towards the progression of the peace process. I come from the school of thought which says if we have a breakthrough with the Israelis, and this is a long-term shot, you know, it's wishful thinking, maybe it's a thoughtful wish, all right? That will facilitate the process of co-opting Hamas into the process. But since there is no breakthrough, no release of political prisoners, no stoppage of building settlements, nothing is moving on the ground. Hamas will always gain the momentum and the power that the peace process is a failure. And since the PLO did not deliver the goods at the end of the day, then the question of factionism becomes as important as you have suggested so. But I believe any breakthrough in the peace process, I think it will be the beginning of the end of the politics of Hamas in the occupied territories.
Let us hope for that, and I think let's end on a positive note. I think there's an Arab proverb, patience is the key to happiness. Manuel HASSASSIAN, thank you so much for being on WPC TV.